Hey, Husker fans, and welcome back to the Husker Big Red YouTube channel and to all of our viewers out there on social media. My name's Chris, and I'm back here for our Saturday morning chat here with my co-host, Danny Gillette. And we got quite a bit to talk about here with Nebraska football recruiting. So we're going to break down the new commitment of Luke Sorensen, look ahead to some of the other visitors this weekend, some of the other happenings with Nebraska football. So hopefully you guys can join along with the chat. Feel free to hop in with questions, anything else that you want to talk about, any topics that you would like to discuss. But Danny, first, how are you doing on this Saturday morning?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. A lot of news for Nebraska, a lot of movement, and some crystal ball predictions even late Friday night. So things are moving in the right direction, and things are moving in general.
Yeah, so if you guys again, if you haven't already, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, get into the comments section so you don't miss any of our future videos or any of our future Saturday morning chats. We've been a little inconsistent with these, but we're going to try to hit them every Saturday, especially with the season approaching, because that's definitely going to be a focal point. We'll be here every Saturday morning during the season, leading up to the games, giving our predictions, our breakdowns, all that type of stuff. So yeah, looking back to Friday night, Nebraska got back to commitment number 6. And good morning, James. Go Big Red. But yeah, commitment number 6, which they did have 6 commitments before. They lost one earlier this week as CJ Brona essentially flipped his commitment to Florida. I mean, he decommitted to Nebraska for like a day and then committed to Florida quickly after that. So got back to 6 commitments yesterday with Luke Sorensen, another 3-star. He's ranked, I believe, 683 in the 24/7 Sports Composite rankings out of Servite, California. 6'4", 250 pounds. An interesting tidbit I thought about um, Luke Sorensen is that he actually started as an offensive tackle. So he is, much more of a blocking tight end, an inline blocker. He's not someone, in the Carter Nelson mold that's going to slot out or play wide receiver. He is very much a blocking tight end. He had 15 pass receptions last season, so not like an overly productive receiver. So just that, I think that he's more of a traditional tight end. I do think he has a lot of upside as a receiver, but it feels like to me his early impact with Nebraska could be, as a run blocker and that type of thing.
Yeah, and it kind of makes sense when you look at Dana Holgerson's offense because last season the tight ends weren't featured too much once Holgerson took over. They did improve and they did make an impact. I know Luke Lindenmeyer really kind of shone brightly in those final games with Holgerson, but this makes sense from a scheme standpoint because I feel like this offense is going to utilize the receivers a bit more. With that being said, kind of the wide open offense and the air raid offense, even though it may not be the traditional air raid, should lend itself to some pass catching opportunities from the tight end position. So I think Sorensen will be able to make an impact there. And as far as blocking is concerned, I mean that's just another basically offensive lineman for Dylan Raiola to have, or Trey Taylor or any of these other quarterbacks. So it's going to be really interesting to see how he fits into this offense and how much he catches the football. But overall, a really good athlete, and Nebraska beat out Penn State and Ole Miss for him. So that's a big recruiting win, in my opinion. Just due to the fact that Penn State can develop tight ends really well too. So I was a little bit worried about that piece of it heading down the stretch, but ultimately Nebraska won out.
Yeah, I mean, you think if you and when you look at his offer sheet, there's actually a lot of pretty big names on there for Luke Sorensen. He's 685 in the composite rankings, so I was a couple of spots off there, but so 29 offers total. And yeah, Ole Miss, but beyond that, beyond Ole Miss and Penn State, who are two of the finalists, you have, Wisconsin, who he took an official visit to, Alabama, Auburn, Florida, LSU, Miami, Michigan, Notre Dame, Tennessee, Texas, Texas A&M, USC. So quite a few power programs that offered Luke Sorensen. So again, I think this is a solid commitment for Nebraska. Um, Looking at the 2026 class as a whole, so 6 commitments according to the 24/7 composite rankings. Nebraska is 72nd right now. And I guess I'm not I'm not that worried about the overall rankings. I think that we've talked about that before. The one thing that does worry me a little bit, just looking at the class right now, is you've got 6 commitments, and your highest ranked commitment right now is 592 with Hayden Ainsworth. So I do think they need to try to get some more blue chip type prospects into this class. Hopefully, they can start and work on that this weekend and add some prospects this weekend or soon after. But so I mean, I'm not I don't think it's time to press the panic button or anything, but I do think that some of the criticism maybe from fans is a little bit warranted, although I don't think it's I think some people are going a little bit far with it.
You got the transfer portal. You loaded your last 2 classes. You're going to load up for 2027. I'm not worried about this class at all. This class is more of a filler class, in my opinion. And I do think honestly, you are going to see a little bit more in the transfer portal because that's where developed, ready to go players come from. So I'm not worried about this particular class. If this was the case for the last 2 classes, then I'd be a little bit worried because it would show a little bit of a trend. But I think this class is, and this is not to disrespect any of the players in it, but I feel like it's a little bit more of a holdover class until 2027 comes along, because I think that's where you're going to see them do most of their work, even this summer. I mean, when you look at some of the visits, like Claude Mpua, who's coming, and when you look towards the future, I do think they'll have more commitments, but I'm not too worried about this class overall.
Let me see. Okay. So Mitchell says, I think another decommit from this class. That's the rumor anyways. Well, yeah, so I think who you're talking about is the wide receiver. I'm pulling up the class here. So and thanks for the comment, Mitchell, by the way.
Morning, Mitch.
But yeah, Davion Bonwell-Whitty, he hasn't visited the class. He's been
I haven't
committed.
heard a peep about him. Sorry, Chris. I'm just saying I haven't heard a peep about him, so I wouldn't be surprised at all.
There was, I think he maybe did make a trip during the spring. There was some talk about him for a while, but it didn't really materialize. So yeah, I wouldn't expect him to be in this class. And I mean, if you look at who is visiting this weekend, they've got a couple of receivers on campus for official visits. So I think that kind of like Nayland Scott, the Arizona State commitment, is visiting. Larry Miles. They also had Zion Robinson on campus earlier this week for kind of a surprise midweek visit. So, so I definitely think Nebraska's moving on there. Yeah, and I guess no, I mean you're not going to have a top 10 class, every time, but I definitely do think I do think that high school. Even with the transfer portal, I still think high school recruiting is more important, and you have to get good players in high school recruiting. Because I just think I think teams that depend too much on the transfer portal, I think that they're going to get burned a little bit. And so, I mean, I do get your points, but I also don't think that you can really afford to have like a throwaway class or anything. I think that you need to. I think they can have a smaller class, whether that's 20 or 15 or 18 guys. But I still think whatever that class is, I mean, you still just can't have, you got to have some blue chip talent in there, I guess, is my main point. And whether it's whether you're acquiring talent through the transfer portal or whether you're acquiring it through high school recruiting, you need to be getting the blue chip type of players. And so I would like to see them get more. I understand. With offensive linemen and like with Ainsworth and Rex Waterman, I do think it makes sense to take more more developmental projects, I would say, in high school recruiting, because the more, when you get to the transfer portal, those guys are going to be expensive. And I think we've seen that in the past few years. And we've seen Nebraska try to get these big time tackles out of the transfer portal, and they did get Elijah Pritchett this year, but outside of that, they have not really been able to get those guys. The Isaiah Worlds of the world, so to speak. So I do think that while the transfer portal is always there, it's there for everybody else too, and I think it can be fool's gold to say, hey, we're just going to go to the transfer portal and get a big time cornerback, or like. Yeah, we lost CJ Brown. It's easy to say, yeah, sure, we could go to get into the transfer portal to get a guy to replace him, but those guys aren't always there. I know they've got, Sayer Wright and Andrew Marshall, but I think that the transfer portal needs to be more of a secondary thing. And I think high school recruiting still needs to be the lifeblood of, I think, every successful program. Because if you look at the teams that are winning national championships, they're not relying on the transfer portal that much. I mean, they're
Ohio
supplementing.
State was literally built on the transfer portal, starting with
Not,
Will Howard.
I mean, their quarterback, Will Howard and Caleb Downs, but a lot of their other players, I mean, Jeremiah Smith, both of their running backs, most of their defense, their entire defensive line, that was all players that they recruited. So, I mean, you can supplement from the portal, but really outside of Downs and Will Howard, a lot of those guys were homegrown players.
I mean, weren't there running backs from the transfer portal too?
Well, I guess Judkins was, yeah, but Travion Henderson was the guy they recruited.
I mean, Howard, Judkins, Downs, that wins you the national championship right there. Without Howard, I don't think they go to the. I don't necessarily think they go to the national championship.
I mean, if they would have kept, Kyle McCord was better than Will Howard. So, I mean, if you really want to go back and look at it, if they just would have kept Kyle McCord and not ran him out of town, they would have been fine with him. But yeah, I mean, Caleb Downs, sure, but Jeremiah Smith is the biggest reason they won the national championship. I mean, in my opinion.
I mean, yeah, but I think I do think having that quarterback was crucial, and I do think Howard is pretty decent. Was pretty decent as a quarterback, but I mean, I do think that you will start to see teams that were built out of the transfer portal win national championships. I don't think it's necessarily sustainable, like you said, but I mean, I don't really feel like Nebraska's relied on the transfer portal yet, so to speak. I think they've had some misses for sure, and I think they've had some hits, but I just think the whole direction of high school recruiting is starting to change, and I don't know if it's for the better.
Yeah, I mean, I do think it is, but I think, I don't know. I mean, it is different, but I sometimes do think that that's a little I do think that's a little overblown a little bit. It's just, I don't know. It's still,
because you can't go in and say, I'm going to develop a guy for 3 years with the guarantee that he's going to stay with the program anymore.
Yeah, but I think more guys are staying. I mean, you're right. I mean, a lot of guys are leaving, but I don't know. It seems like less, I mean, I don't know. It didn't seem to me like the power programs like the Georgias or Alabamas or like the Ohio States just didn't seem like they lost that much to the portal. I mean, not guys that they really want. So I don't know. I mean, I get what you're saying, and I do think that the transfer portal, you do need to get good players out of there to help. But I think it's still, I still think that the backbone of your team, it's just like with the NFL. I think the backbone of your team has to come through the draft, and you do have to get players in free agency as well. But if you don't do well in the draft part of it, and if you don't do well in recruiting, then I don't think that what you're doing in the portal is going to, be able to make up for that enough, I guess, is what I'm saying. It's you need to have that base level talent through your high school recruiting. And I think Nebraska, for the most part, has done that. I mean, a lot of their best players, have been high school recruits. I mean, Dylan Raiola. So, I'm not saying that that you can't go through the transfer portal. I just am wary of the idea of just, trying to build a team, more out of the transfer portal and not focusing on high school recruiting. And the reality with high school recruiting too is, I think, outside of the money that all these guys are getting, that some of these kids, like the not top 100 kids, are getting, they're not going to get that money anymore. It's going to go away. And so I think I don't know. It's really hard to say, what's this new era of recruiting going to look like? Is it going to be good for Nebraska? Is it going to be bad for Nebraska? I just really have no idea. I mean, yeah. Tim Verges was saying the other day that Nebraska has as much money or more money than some SEC teams. It's okay. I mean, I get that, but sometimes it doesn't seem like it. And sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. So, I mean, I feel like they're very selective in how they utilize their money, which I do think is a good thing. You can't just throw money at every single player, but there are times where I wish that they would be a little bit more aggressive. I mean, CJ Brona is one case. Now, maybe he just wanted to be closer to home. I don't know. That's something that was reported. But I do think that there's instances where you do need to, shell out the money. And I think in this new era of recruiting, it's really going to be, the teams that the teams that really want those top 150 players, I think they're really going to have to shell out for them, and they're really going to have to get creative. And sometimes they're going to just have to pay them directly as high school players, and so it's not going to be a rev share thing. So I don't know, it'll be interesting. But then if you look at the guys from that are outside that range, I don't think you're going to have to pay a lot of them so I do think that development is really going to be key, and a lot of them will just be like rev share guys. So I don't know, it's going to be interesting to see how it all works out. But yeah, I do think that they do need to do a better job in this class, though. I don't think that they can just look at this
I
class
agree.
and say, "Oh, we're not, going to get talent." And I think that they will. So anyway, long story short here. So this class won't be top 30, maybe not top 40, and that's
Yeah.
fine with me. We have 95 underclassmen, and if we get
Yeah.
8 more commits, we know who they are, and they will be 8 very fine players in the 2027 class.
Yeah.
Is where we hit the home run. I mean, yeah, I
Yeah.
agree with that. But I still think, they still got to lock down some talent in this class for sure. And losing CJ Brona definitely was a blow for sure. I mean, there's no really, sugarcoating that one. He was a pretty unique player in my opinion. So, anyway,
Not surprised though. I mean, it was only a matter of time.
yeah, I mean, it's still a bummer though.
No,
Which they
oh
could have
yeah,
held
still
on to him.
it still sucks, no doubt, but I was not surprised at all.
So looking ahead to this weekend, there's basically 6 visitors on campus. There's 8 visitors total, but 2 of them are Nebraska commits, Jace Reynolds and Dayton Rayola. Excuse me. So in terms of 2026 targets, you have 6 guys really to know this weekend. Claude Mpua, the offensive tackle.
Who's
Danny
announcing
Odom.
next Sunday, by the way, the 29th?
Yeah, Danny Odom, the cornerback, Devin Jackson, safety from Florida, Javion Cooper, offensive tackle from Syracuse, or who's committed to Syracuse, Nayland Scott, and then also Larry Miles. So, I mean, I think there's a good chance Nebraska gets a good chunk of these players. I think they need to. I think they need to get more than half the players who are visiting this weekend, or this recruiting class might be. They're going to have to do a lot of resetting on the board. Not saying that this class will be a failure or anything, but they're gonna if they don't land the majority of the players visiting this weekend, I think they're gonna have to recalibrate a little bit going into the fall.
I would watch Odom and Jackson very closely. I know Odom loves the coaching staff and is close with Matt Rule, and Jackson decided to come with Odom, so I'd watch those two. And then Mpua is making his decision the 29th, and so that's going to be one to watch as well. But out of that grouping, Odom and Jackson are the ones that I'm paying attention to the most.
And so they've been they've had both of those guys on campus, I think, during the spring. Devin Jackson Florida is more is the team that's favored according to the On3 prediction machine, but you really have to look at the visits sometimes, because he didn't even take an official visit to Florida. So when you look at the On3 recruiting prediction machine, it doesn't always, it's a computer-based thing. So he's visited Florida 11 times. He does have an official visit there, I guess this week, according to On3. So I don't know. Sometimes it's hard to know how accurate that information is. 3 visits to Miami, 2 visits to Nebraska, 11 to Florida, which is why, they are, the heavy favorite according to the On3 prediction machine. But the only actual expert prediction, if you dig into it, is from 2023. So this recruitment's still pretty wide open. I think that Nebraska has a really good chance to get him. He's 217 overall in the 2026 class. So he's the safety. The other kid, Danny Odom, Penn State is the leader according to the recruiting prediction machine. There's a bunch of teams in the mix for him, but the other official visits, Penn State, Ohio State, Auburn, Oklahoma. So that tells you the caliber of player that Danny Odom is. And I mean, if there was going to be anybody that
I'm just laughing at this comment. Sorry.
I was going to say, but if there's anybody that could fill the void a little bit of, CJ Brona, it would be Danny Odom, since he's ranked, in the top 200. Anyway, so let's see. I don't buy this as Mitchell Lee. I don't buy the closer to home reason. Did he just realize one morning that Nebraska wasn't in Florida? Florida wrote a bigger check. That's it. That's fine. He should admit it. There's nothing wrong with it. I just changed jobs for $300 a week. As far as CJ goes, we have an army of backs. He will be replaced, and in 6 months, we won't care or remember his name. I love the NIL money for CJ and give that to the Swede nose tackle.
No, is that Valdin Sohn?
Yeah,
Or
Valdin Sohn. Yeah, that's what he's talking about.
okay, I like him.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, but the one thing about CJ Brona is I don't know how many cornerbacks you're going to find that run 10-3 and have those kind of ball skills and that size. So, I mean, like there's other good players, but there's not a player on the Nebraska roster that is like CJ Brown. I mean, Saya Wright is close, and he's probably, I guess he was probably very similarly rated coming out of high school. So I'd say Saya Wright is that player now, but there's nobody else like going forward who has that kind of ability. So, I mean, like that's all I would say there. Danny Odom would be a good pickup though. And I do agree. I think it did come down to NIL because Tim Verges even said Florida on his first visit, they didn't talk NIL and then they realized that was a mistake and they did. So I don't know. To me, if Nebraska missed him solely based on NIL, to me, that will be disappointing, but I mean, it is what it is.
I mean, Nebraska has been selective in who they offer, but I wonder how much that strategy will go on to hurt them.
But I mean, I understand where what Mitchell's saying to have invest in more of a defensive line because they do need guys like that. I mean, I'm not but I do think you need skill guys too. And cornerbacks, sometimes people forget about I consider cornerback skill players because when you look at, I go back to Matt Rule's comments like, hey, if we're going to compete against Ohio State, who would have helped with that? CJ Brona, because Ohio State, you talk about high school recruiting, like their seventh receiver is a 5-star rated in the top 50. You know what I mean? Like every single receiver on their depth chart, like their worst rated receiver is probably ranked higher than our best receiver as a recruit. And that might not actually be true, but that's just how like Ohio State is. And they're like that with like every single team in the Big Ten. It's not just Nebraska. So like, that's just where if you're going to play with those guys eventually, like you need somebody who can match up with Jeremiah Smith. Now, maybe CJ Brown can't do that. I'm not saying, I don't know if anybody can, but like you need those kind of athletes. So that's all. Like, I just keep going back to that thing that Matt Rule said like 2 or 3 months ago, like, hey, we want to compete with, like, we want to get the kids that are going to help us beat Ohio State. And I just don't think that they've quite done that enough in this class. I guess that's my one qualm. And I like the players that they've got, but they do need to get more of those, more of those guys that are going to help you beat Ohio State, that type of player. And I don't see a ton of guys in that class right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but like Mitchell said, we have 95 underclassmen. We got to test some of them out.
Yeah, and no, I mean, I get what you're saying. I think it's a chance.
And I get what you're saying too. I'm just saying, and I totally get what you're saying about not having a big class. But this is, I guess my point here is this is where I feel like the 95 underclassmen are gonna come in. You either can play or you can't, and we're gonna find out the hard way for some of them.
Yeah, and see, I'm not even as worried about the numbers. I'm just more, like I don't care. I'm not gonna freak out if they sign like 15 kids, but I don't want 15 kids ranked outside the top 500. You know what I mean? And I know that rankings don't matter that much. And I know I say that all the time, and I do think that rankings are very subjective, but like at a point that's like, it's not hard to realize like, oh, Carter Nelson, look at Carter Nelson's a damn good player. Like everybody and their mom ranks Carter Nelson as a top 150 player because he just is. You see him and he just is, like a Dylan Raiola. They need a few more, and Claude Mpua would be one of those dudes. Danny Odom would be one of those guys. I think Devin Jackson would be, Devin Jackson. Valdin Sohn would be one of those guys. So they're definitely still out there on the board. Zion Robinson. I mean, this kid does not get talked about enough. I mean,
now was Zion Robinson kind of a late addition, or was he a planned visit? Because he kind of popped up on the radar middle of this week, and it was like, oh, Zion Robinson took a visit. Was that sort of a calculated visit, or was it just one where he took a visit midweek? Because Nebraska's been able to get some guys for midweek visits over these past couple months.
No, that was a surprise visit. He wasn't supposed to take that one. So, he visited Michigan, and he came out of Michigan, a lot of positive buzz, and the Michigan people were worried about TCU because his dad is the director of track and field there. Then he canceled his visit to TCU, added a visit to Nebraska. He's visiting Stanford this weekend, also visited Miami. So I would say the 3 teams in addition to Nebraska are Stanford, Miami and Michigan, but Michigan also has a lot of other receivers in the fire, irons in the fire receiver. I don't know enough about Miami to say. I feel like the fact that he's considering Stanford, shows that academics really
Smart
play a
kid.
factor
Yep.
into it. But people don't give the University of Miami enough credit, but it's one of the best academic institutions in the
Yep.
country. So you look at Miami, Michigan, Stanford, Nebraska. All four of those teams are pretty good academic institutions. So I don't know where I feel like this is a really wide open recruitment, and there's a lot of them. Do you notice a lot of these recruitments in years past? I feel like there's been more like crystal balls. A lot of these guys are coming in here
Yep.
without any type of crystal balls,
Yep.
which I think it makes it more fun as a fan, but it's very hard to read though.
Well, again, it's like how much stock do you put in these crystal balls, right?
True. Yeah.
I mean,
Sometimes not much.
yeah, sometimes not much, sometimes a lot, but it does make the recruitment a lot more fun, like you said. I mean, and it kind of makes it, you know, CJ Bronock could be committed to Nebraska, but will he stay? It kind of is kind of like one of those mystery novels where you try to find the killer at the end, or you find out the answers at the end, or whatever. So it is kind of fun. It's stressful, but a lot of these kids, I think, are being smarter about their decisions, are being more calculated with their decisions, and are taking their time. So I think there's a lot of factors that play into that: the NIL, the program stability, the coach stability. So in that sense, I think it's good too.
But yeah, so Zion Robinson, 6'3", 180, can high jump 6'8", he can run sub 11 in the 100. So yeah, he's a Matt Rule guy if they can get him. I think they have a better chance than we'll see if Michigan can get a couple of other receivers, then maybe that might help out Nebraska with Zion Robinson. But Carter Nelson, will we even see him this year? I
This
don't
is a
know.
good question.
I honestly have no idea. I know Tim Burgess kind of like said that he thought he might not see him, and then that caused a bunch of panic. I just don't know. It's gonna be a bummer if we don't, but I guess redshirt him up and bring him along for 2026. I don't
I
know.
hope he doesn't fall in line with the rest of the Nebraska prospects that we've recruited so far. Not the rest. I
Yeah.
shouldn't say that. I shouldn't say the rest, but a good chunk. All of 2023, basically.
Yeah, well, I mean, it would be it would be a bummer. I would just say it would be a bummer if you get, if you have Malachi and then Carter Nelson, who were pretty highly touted recruits, if you get them and just, if they don't end up producing here. And that's not
Hall and McMorris too. I mean, they were
for sure.
they were
Hall and
high
McMorris
too.
too. Yeah, they weren't quite, but those were the two big national recruitments, and so
Yeah.
that'll be not even that's like a miss. It's just with Carter Nelson the injury, because like he had a touchdown
Yeah.
reception last year,
Ugh.
and Malachi the injuries too. I'm interested to see what he does with Minnesota, but let's see what Mitchell
Oop.
says here.
Oh,
I don't like track. Rats playing football. Track is really
yeah.
hard on the body,
I like
especially at the
wrestling
level
and I
Carter
like
was at.
basketball. Track is meh for me. I don't know about for you.
Yeah, I mean, track is hard on the body depending on especially depending on your events. I like to see the measurable times, but yeah, I don't outside of that, I don't care that much. I mean, you don't have to do track to get your times
So this
verified or
is
whatever.
interesting because I feel like the Badgers really don't have a case here. I don't know. They've
I haven't even looked at it that much because I'm just like yeah, I'm sure they did. Like, yeah, I don't know if they really have a case either. I mean, there's just I think this could build towards having something in the future, that it could build towards something with players having, but I don't know. There's already
I
language
think
in
needs to
the
happen. Well, maybe stricter
yeah,
rules need to happen or
and
something.
there's already language in the new house settlement stuff about buyouts, because they're talking about whose cap the buyouts are going to hit against. So I don't know. We'll see. I mean, it's kind of interesting though, but it's I don't I have no idea if it's going to matter, and they'll probably just end up settling it out of court. Who knows?
Can you imagine how many lawsuits there would be if they actually paid attention to tampering?
Yeah,
Like, I don't
yeah.
know.
Another redshirt candidate is
Yeah.
Gatula. He looks like a high schooler again. Hasn't lifted weights in 6 months. Yeah, I can't verify any of that, but I do know that there's been a lot of talk about Henry Leftoski at tackle. So, and I don't think he practiced at all during the spring, did he? He was one of the guys that was out
No,
during the
he was
spring.
out.
So
Yep.
there was it was hard to keep track of all of them, but there was a few offensive linemen. Teddy Prohashka was in and out, Corcoran, Leftoski. It sounds, but I keep reading and hearing that they are kind of hoping that Leftoski is the starting right tackle. Fumbling over my words there for a second. So him at right tackle, Rocco at guard, Evans at center, your boy Turner Corcoran at left guard, and Elijah Pritchett at left tackle.
I was gonna say Corcoran out, no way. But anyway, I like that offensive line, even if because in Corcoran's defense, I feel like he was just moved around so much trying to find a good position for him, and that didn't help. But also, like, I feel like his
And then he did find,
six,
and then he did find a position, and then he couldn't stay healthy. So it's like,
and he's 6'8", so that doesn't
yeah.
help either. Honestly, like, all joking aside, being 6'8" as an offensive lineman is tough.
But if he doesn't end up being healthy or playing, I think Grant Bricks is a good option. I think Gibson Pyle's a good option. Yeah, maybe, I don't know. I have no idea if what Mitch is saying about Gatula, probably he's not going to be, but maybe if he can get healthy at some point. So I feel pretty good about the offensive line. I know that I get that in like every comment. We get like a receiver or anybody, they're like, we need more offensive line. Like, I know that. Yes, I know, but they have been getting more. I mean, they have been getting more.
Me too. It's like,
the entire
you have no
105
idea
man
how happy the
can't
Rex
be.
Waterman and Hayden Ainsworth commitments made me, because I didn't have to hear everybody complain about the offensive line. When on the Ainsworth, when I post about Ainsworth, it's like, we need more skill guys for the offensive line.
Yeah.
I'm like,
now
okay.
they're too low rated. It's like, oh, brother, come on. The clearinghouse will be a nightmare. Yeah, I don't know how they're going to process all of those.
I agree.
What I think is going to happen, Mitch, this is my prediction, is they're just not going to deal with it, the big athletes, because they're going to get paid as high school kids, and every state's going to have to pass a law that makes it so their high school kids can receive NIL money from colleges, and they're just going to pay them like if Nebraska wants a kid committed this weekend, they're going to have to pay him like $600,000 or whatever it is, and they're going to have to pay kids not to take visits to other schools because now if I'm a recruit, hey, like if I'm CJ Brona, I'm committed to Nebraska, but Miami, Florida State, and Florida all want me to visit. Each of those visits, I get paid like $30,000, or $10,000 or whatever it is. I mean, that's the reality of what's happening, and that's what it's going to be. So how are you going to pay me not to take? If you want me to be committed, what are you going to pay me to be committed? And it's
going to be messy. It's going to be really messy, I think, in some spots. But don't be surprised to see Teddy at right tackle. Okay.
Yeah, that wouldn't shock me. Teddy, if he can stay healthy, when he's been out there for like the 4 or 5 games where he was actually healthy, he's been a pretty good player.
I know you didn't mean to be that. I know you didn't mean to be funny, but you're right.
That's what it is. If the dude could stay healthy for 12 games, he probably could get an NFL contract. I mean, I'm not saying like a draft pick, but he probably would get signed, because how many guys are 6'8", 6'9" that have footwork like he does when he's actually. That's why the ACL thing, just like the last injury, really sucked, because it felt like he was finally back, and well, not back, but just like it felt like he had a chance.
He was in a groove, and he got confidence. You could start to see it, and then just that.
Yeah, I think Grant. I think those guys are close.
Yeah.
So I think Gibson Pyle's going to be a really good guard. The fans in here, sometimes they are absolutely insufferable.
Sometimes, yeah. I mean, we love the engagement, though, even if they are sometimes a little bit crazy, and I
mean, but you know what? Nebraska fans have earned the right to be insufferable a little bit, so I'll give them a pass. We've earned it.
This is why I started covering this team in general, because no matter what I posted or wrote about, fans always had something to say, good or bad, and they liked they comment on our stuff, and they're engaged with it. So that's what I really like about Nebraska fans. Good or bad, they always engage. They always have something to say. And sometimes when I've covered other teams, I feel like my articles and posts have gone into the void, never to be heard from again. Well, not around here. Not around here.
Yeah,
right?
I was thinking, I was watching I don't know why this is a random topic, but I was watching the WNBA because I love the WNBA. And I
Mhm.
was sitting there thinking, man, like, God, Omaha, you know who needs a team? Omaha. Because you know who would support the hell out of a women's professional basketball team? Nebraska fans. I mean, because they do everything. That place would be sold out every single night. Even if the team had like an 0-20 record, they would still freaking sell that place out because that's how Nebraska supports athletes, women's athletes, man. They don't care if they support Nebraska, like they're there for you, and that's what makes it really cool about
We need a
Nebraska. So
D1 college hockey team too. We have D2, right? D2 right
yeah,
now.
I love the big Herbie on the
Yeah.
jersey. How
Yeah.
sweet would that be? A big Herbie
Yeah.
Husker on the or just the big N, I guess. Just the big, that would be sweet too.
I
Have
like the
Herbie in the
black
center of
shirts hockey
price.
jersey. That'd be cool.
That would be cool. Or just a bit, and then the big N circle in the middle. Big Ten hockey is really good, and I think
Yeah, it is.
Nebraska could be, yeah,
I mean,
that'd
I
be
think
fun to have.
Nebraska would have to work a little bit to like get to the level of a Michigan or even Minnesota. Minnesota is really good,
Yeah,
but
Michigan State's been really good lately
yeah,
too, the
they
past few
have.
years.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, D1 hockey for Nebraska would be great. I would be watching every single game.
yeah, well, maybe because they'd probably all be on BTN
I was
plus.
I was just thinking, you know what? Maybe if I could, watch every single
But
game.
maybe that would be what finally gets you, Danny. They like, oh, we finally got Danny
Hockey,
Gillette, man. We got
hockey.
hockey. We got Nebraska hockey.
Maybe. I mean,
That'll be the
because
reason.
Minnesota hockey is really good too. I mean, the
Yeah,
Gophers and then Minnesota to lose, and then I think you have one more. Ferris State was good many years ago, but I don't know if they're still good
yeah,
now. But a lot of good hockey in that area. The
yeah. And then
Dakotas and Wisconsin, obviously.
Wisconsin. I think Notre Dame is actually in the Big Ten for hockey. I think.
Oh, they joined. Oh, yeah, that's right. Because they
I
joined it.
don't
Or
know.
no, I think it's Hockey East. Or is it Hockey East? No, they
Oh,
moved out. They moved out.
yeah. Hockey conferences are weird.
They joined a
So
conference or something at least. So there you go.
anyways, all right. Well, we're coming up against it here, guys. So if you have any little final comments,
19 viewers today. Pretty good. Thank you for
lots
all
of
for watching.
traveling.
Yeah.
Figured out that fundamental yet, and they don't. Yeah, they don't call a lot of traveling in professional basketball, Mitch. So that's just
NBA too. They really don't call.
yeah, that's what I mean.
Oh, hey, Co, how's it going? We can stay a little bit for you if you have any quick questions or whatever. I don't know what your
And
schedule's just, but
yeah, we're gonna try to we'll try to do this every Saturday about 8 o'clock Eastern time. So you can set your calendars in the future, Co. But you can always catch the replay too if you missed us. And anybody else who is coming in late, you can always catch the replay. So yeah, but yeah, we're gonna try to keep these going, and we might even have some more during the week. We're thinking about maybe ramping these up just because we'd have a lot of fun talking shop with you guys, talking ball.
maybe let's see. Next week I have a 5K and a wedding, so probably not next week. But I'm thinking maybe,
You got to get
probably
those
the
out of
week
the way
after,
now, so that's good.
huh?
That's good. You're knocking those out of the way now. That
I
they
know,
they
I
don't
know.
have that on there.
I have a busy schedule,
That's
but
good. That's good that they didn't try to lock into a September wedding or something. That would have been that'd
although
have been a
honestly,
travesty.
for a lot of these games, a September wedding would have been preferred.
That's true. You just I mean, I just stream. I'll just stream it in the pocket. Get the old headphones in.
I'd probably love to watch it, but for my health, a September wedding probably wouldn't be the worst thing in the world.
That's true. Yeah.
I'm
And
graying more ever
not
since
so
I covered
hot
Nebraska.
too.
Yeah.
Those June weddings, man, you got to dress up and it gets hot. I don't like it. I don't like
Well, it's been
dressing
the
up.
rain around here. It's been raining every weekend, except for this weekend. It's actually pretty nice, but a lot of rain lately.
Okay, let's see. So we'll take this question from Co. How many commits do you think are committed? I'll say committed by the end of June. I say there are 12. Nebraska's at 6 right now. How many do you think, Danny?
Probably 10, with Larry Miles being July 1st because that's his decision date.
So let's see. I'll go with 10, but yeah, I think you're close up. I think
Yeah.
by I'll say by July 4th, I think they'll have 12 commitments because
Yeah.
I do think that they'll get Darian Jones and I think they'll get Larry Miles. I think
You
they're
think
going
they'll
to
get Darian Jones? Okay.
I do. I do think they're going to get Darian Jones because I think they're really going to want Darian Jones. So I think they're going to get him. I think they're going to get Claude and Pua, and I'm going to
Ooh.
do a backflip. But I think that announcement is a sign that he's committed to Nebraska. And he was with Trey Taylor. They're both from Chicago. So he's going to be the first big recruiting win for Trey Taylor, Claude
Well, I
Mpuigi.
think Luke
Mark it down
Sorensen
right
was the
now.
first big recruiting win because he had
Well,
dinner
true.
with Luke the weekend before, the 6th, the first weekend in June. He had dinner with Luke, took him out to lunch and stuff or whatever. So I think that could be considered his first win.
So we got okay. So Darian, Miles, Claude. I also think Jamal Rule, who's going to announce anytime soon. Devin Jackson, Danny Odom. So I'm going to say that's 6 guys at least. So probably will be a little bit more. I feel like that athlete that was here, Jacob Eberhardt.
Jacob Everhart from Missouri, yeah,
Yeah, I feel like they got the lead for him, although
he would
his
be
his
nice.
recruitment. So I mean, really quickly, I feel like this class is going to start looking a lot better. So I
Yeah,
know it's that's where it is right now, but everybody goes through that in June. You have tons like sometimes you'll look up and it'll be June and you'll look up and Georgia will be ranked like 40th and you're like, what in the world? And then 2 weeks later they'll be ranked like in the top 20. So I mean, things go quickly with recruiting, and it's like Luke Sorensen was here on June 6th and he made his
yep.
decision June 20th. So I mean, like there's going to be commitments coming down the pipe. So don't
And to
does
answer
Luke
this question, yes, but I think he'll bulk up pretty quick. I mean, just look at Emmett Johnson from last season to this off season. I mean, he looks like a man. Like he looks huge. So they'll get him on that strength and conditioning program when he comes here for sure.
Yeah, I don't know why he does look because they have him listed as 6'4", 250. So I mean, I don't know why he looks like he's not that on the film, but yeah, I'm not too concerned about it, especially because he was at one point an offensive lineman, so he's probably got at least the ability to bulk up on himself. So, and although maybe keep a close eye on him on the training table. You know how the offensive linemen like to eat, so don't eat yourself back into being an offensive tackle.
There's
Don't
a
eat
reason
yourself
why I
back.
always sat with the offensive linemen after football practice, and they would help me get like 5 plates of food. I'd just be mowing down and not feel self-conscious about mowing down on 5 plates because I was with the O lineman.
But yeah, his profile says 6'4", 250. So
He does look
definitely.
small though, and I'm not bashing him. I can see where people could think he's small, but I think he is a big kid when
Yeah.
all comes down to it.
So, all right, everybody. Well, I have to head out for the day, but we'll be back with another episode here on Monday. Maybe not next weekend for the live chat. We'll stay tuned to that, but we'll try to have some more during the week as well. So keep an eye out for some of those, maybe like on a Wednesday morning or Thursday morning. We're still trying to figure that out. But yeah, if you haven't already, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, get into the comments section, especially all you guys watching on the replay. And as always, go Big Red.
Go Big Red.